Awesome. Um, Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Mike. I help lead the observability product efforts here at ClickHouse, and I'm really excited to deep dive a bit more about what we've been working on, how we think about observability, and what's coming next. So just kicking things off, I think Tanya already kind of mentioned this, but ClickHouse has been used for observability at scale with some of the largest use cases, such as Tesla, OpenAI, Anthropic, and they've had a chance to kind of share their stories in the past with us as well. Before diving in further into why ClickHouse is such a great observability store, I want to talk a little bit about the history of observability. And I think the first observability tool really should be grep from the 1970s. So that's when you go, SSH in a machine, find the specific error message you're looking for with grep, and then you're kind of all set. And that's what observability really meant back then. And then we started, adding more than one machine to your server and made things a bit more reliable and scale that over time. We need to be able to centralize a lot of these logs in a single place. And we introduced tools like Splunk, where you could finally have all your logs in a single place and be able to search through them. But things kept scaling. We kept having more servers, more cardinality, more volume. We introduced search databases like Elastic to help manage and search on top of that log volume. But as we kept increasing the number of servers and complexity of apps, it turns out it was no longer just a search problem. We needed to understand trends over time to understand, hey, holistically, we're hitting thousands of errors. What are the different types of errors? What are they coming from? We take a little bit more of a statistical view on observability over time. So we introduce things like metric stores, starting with Graphite, which was really low cardinality, not really built for the cloud. Then, as we kept doing cloud adoption, Prometheus came around, handled cardinality a little bit better than Graphite. And then as volumes kept growing, introducing tools like Thanos. So basically, the trend is volume and cardinality kept increasing, and we kept having to evolve the data stores that we use for observability. But what's never solved was basically we kept having this trade-offs between a search engine, which was fantastic at doing searches, so needle in the haystack searches, but it had really poor performance when it came to aggregation, so understanding trends of data over time. On the other hand, we had things like metric stores, which were really great at pre-aggregating data together and then building visualizations of that over time. But they're really poor at understanding the root cause of any issue, because you can't actually zoom in to the root cause. You've kind of pre-aggregated that data away. So if there's an issue you didn't anticipate via metric, you're kind of out of luck in that case. And over time, both of these systems really struggled to continue to keep up with the scale and cardinality that we see in modern observability workloads. And so what if there's a world where it could avoid trade-offs? What if there's this mysterious data source, store, where it could store high cardinal logs, as well as the metrics that you need, and it's optimizable to each of those query patterns? What if we could have our cake and eat it too? It has to be cost efficient. It would have some light indices to allow you to do searching on top of it, while also having really, really good aggregation performance. And no surprise, at a ClickHouse conference, I'd be saying that data store is ClickHouse, but hear me out. ClickHouse is, of course, a really high-performance data store. I'm sure many of you in the crowd already know that from using ClickHouse. So it doesn't come as a huge surprise, but it works really well because it has lightweight indices for doing text search on top of your logs. It stores data in the columnar nature, which allows you to do aggregations really performantly as well, and allows you to do visualizations and slicing and dicing on the fly without having to have that pre-computed ahead of time. And additionally, ClickHouse leverages really cheap and effectively bottomless object storage, so that you can store all the data that you want without worrying about sampling and dropping and skimming out on and creating blind spots just because of cost reasons. And that's not the only reason ClickHouse is really great for observability. It has a ton of features that make it really well suited. First of all, of course, that it's tested at petabyte scale with sub-second responses in both queries and inserts, so it keeps up with the volumes that your systems are producing, and also gives users real-time responses during incident to give them the answers that it needs. It's also incredibly resource efficient by having high compression ratios, and as we've said a lot already, separation, compute, and storage, which allows you to be really efficient in terms of the hardware footprint. And it also, of course, supports schemaless storage. So with the new JSON data type, allows your users to basically emit arbitrary shaped telemetry data without you having to manage that schema and keep it up to date as your developers add more and more properties to their logs, metrics, and traces. It's also really flexible of a database. It's ANSI SQL compliant, and it's also compatible with a wide variety of telemetry shippers, least of all open telemetry. And finally, of course, it's compatible with a wide variety of data formats. So even if you have observability data in another data format today, ClickHouse can be querying on top of it. To make it ClickHouse a lot easier to use as your observability stack, that's why we've introduced ClickStack. ClickStack is the high-performance open source observability stack built on top of ClickHouse. It's powered by HyperDX, ClickHouse, and OpenTelemetry. It's really easy to get set up in just a few minutes, either on a new ClickHouse instance or an existing one. In fact, I'll demo this in just a moment. It's also built on top. It's also built for observability workflows. So it's really built from the ground up to monitor anything from front end, so whether that's session replays or errors are happening on the browser, all the way to the back end where you have your traditional logs, fetches, and traces, and it's able to bring all that data together. And all the components here are being maintained in-house here at ClickHouse, so you're getting the best out of ClickHouse's capabilities directly from the developers. And of course, open source is at the core of everything that we do, and ClickStack is also available in open source and is built on open standards with OpenTelemetry. And just as an example, Character AI early this year migrated to ClickStack from their legacy vendor and was able to store 10 times more data, get their data query responses 100 times faster, and was able to save half of their costs compared to what they were running before. So with that, that was a lot of talk. Let's switch to a live demo to see what ClickStack looks like. Awesome. So hopefully you guys can see my terminal here, and it isn't too tiny. Looks about right. So I'll just show how easy it is to get started with ClickStack. So it's a simple Docker run command. This is the easiest way to get started, a single Docker image. There's a lot of different ways to deploy it using Helm, Docker Compose, etc. But this is really good for just a quick demo. So now you can see it's just ran like that. It's already started. So let's just go visit our new instance, create a login, of course. Really secure. I'm not going to save that password. And there we go. So now we have the UI up and running. It's connected to a local ClickHouse instance, and it's ready to receive telemetry. So by default, we'll secure it by a API key so that not anyone can just start sending telemetry into your ClickHouse service. I'm going to run this little utility basically to just add a few demo logs into this instance just to show that it's actually working. And there we go, instantly, we have our logs kind of pulled in ClickStack. So if you're doing this at home, you can do this exact same setup, and it'll take exactly as long as this. So super easy to get started. But this isn't a ton of data, so I'm going to switch to a different instance, which will have a little bit more data and allows me to show a bit more of what a workflow would look like using ClickStack. So the first thing is ClickStack makes it really easy to start searching your data on top of ClickHouse. ClickHouse is, of course, a SQL database, but we also support this really nice Lucene-like syntax. So you could just do things like, I want to know, I think, are there logs for confirmation? Show me all the logs that have the word confirmation in. And just like that, we already have our query returning information. You could be like, OK, I just want the confirmation logs from the email service. Just like that, you could get started, and it will actually translate it into SQL under the hood for you. But other times, your problems might be a little bit more challenging. For example, your coworker might be telling you, hey, in the last day, we had a huge spike in errors. Can you help investigate what actually went wrong? So here, if I did check for errors over the last day, you'll see that there's a ton of error messages. But it's never really clear what exactly was causing it. There's so many, I have to read through all of them myself. We have this really neat feature called event patterns. And what we'll do is, at query time, it's able to take a look at the different logs that you have, condense them down into similar patterns, and then group them together and build trends on top of it. So you get this really high-level view of what's happening to your logs in your system without having to read it one by one and summarize it in your head effectively. And here, it's pretty clear that there's a small group of logs that are spiking at the period of which we're actually interested in. And this one might be the most interesting one. There's this Visa Cache full log. That's quite interesting to take a look at. So we can look at here. By itself, though, this isn't super useful. You will not, well, it's Visa Cache is full, but what's the context around it? What was calling it? What else was going around at that time? Again, because ClickHouse can have all your telemetry stored in one place, we can actually take a look at not only the logs emitted for this specific service, but also the traces. So we can understand where all these requests came from, what was the tree, what all the different services were hit, how long each one took, and also some of the spans that are emitted from the service as well. In this case, not only do we have an error message from this specific span, but also And specifically, we chose in this SDK to enrich it with some source code information so you could get the actual source code along with the stack trace here to understand what was actually going wrong in this specific case. And of course, because you could send all your telemetry into ClickHouse, and this is a really fantastic show of why live demos don't always work. And this is, it's running on the internet, so I wonder if that's what's happening here. But you should be able to see kind of the infrastructure-related metrics for any specific log. So I'm just going to see. We can try it one more time. If not, I'll just keep moving on. That's very odd. I'll just keep moving on to the next part of the demo. So the other thing that we shipped recently is also an integration into ClickHouse Cloud. So some of you folks might already be running observability workloads on top of ClickHouse Cloud, and there's not a really great way of visualizing that data once it's in ClickHouse. There's a few integrations today, but all of them require a bit more setup, and it's not exactly as seamless, I think, as you would like. So we introduced a new ClickStack integration in ClickHouse Cloud. So this is just a look at the Cloud console. This is probably familiar to a decent set of you. You can, if you're taking part in this private preview, you can always sign up for it. You can easily click on the ClickStack icon here. It will open the exact same UI that I just showed just now, and you could take a look at your logs basically just like that. So instead of having to set up a separate Grafana instance or something else, you can actually just click on that button and it'll get automatically connected to your existing ClickHouse instance. And there's other cool things that we've been working on recently as well. Of course, I can't really avoid talking about AI as part of this. So one of the new features that we've added is the ability to basically ask it to generate visualizations for you. So for example, I'm interested in knowing the average duration of operations over the last 12 hours as a line chart. You don't have to be this specific. You could be pretty kind of vague about what you're looking for, but it's able to, span names. You're able to really quickly just kind of tell it what you're kind of interested in. It's able to then understand your intent and then build visualizations on top of it just like that. So pretty easy to get started, visualize your data. Even if you don't understand all the properties, all the attributes that's in your data, you could just have people come in, start building visualizations, answering questions just like that. And there's a ton of other features I don't really have time to show on screen, but there's a lot of cool things around finding anomalies over spans over time, things like having kind of like an APM-like view to understand how your requests are trending over time as well, and things like Kubernetes infrastructure monitoring. So this is would have been if that other chart would have loaded, but you could kind of see how CPU memory usage is going across your entire cluster and drill into any specific pod to dive in and get more details there. And then also, of course, we have session replay. I didn't have a chance to show this off as much, but you could kind of take a look at user sessions and also see the correlated errors for a given session. So if there's a error that a user hit on the front end, you can actually track it all the way into the back end and see what was the back end error associated with it. So you kind of get linkability across the entire stack. And one of the cool things is that we work on shipping a lot of features really constantly. And in fact, the AI feature I just demoed, if you've used ClickStack today, you might be like, hey, I actually haven't seen this feature. And that is actually true. It's because it does not live outside of this pull request today. So as part of it, I just want to be able to actually ship this feature in AI, so I'm not demoing things that don't exist out in the world. So we'll get that PR merged, it'll build a new image, and in development, we'll now have the ability to use the AI assistant in ClickStack. So hopefully that'll be a fun one for everyone to play with once that comes out after this merged. Awesome, and I'd love to go back to the slides. Great. So speaking of all the things that have been shipping, so that's one of the features that we've been working on, and it's now, of course, available. We've also been working on a slew of other features since we last talked about ClickStack in San Francisco. So a lot of them have been around making ClickStack even faster than they were before. For example, we have support for the new JSON data type, which allows you to have up to 10x faster queries for specific property searches. We've also added support for the new experimental inverted index, which of course helps you speed up on full text searches on top of your logs as well. And finally, we've been making a ton of in-app optimizations to make ClickStack search ClickHouse a lot faster, optimizing specifically long time range searches. We're able to return results multiple times faster in search than we used to from a few optimizations at that level. And there's a whole host of other features that I've been working on shipping. You could take a look at the changelog online that I don't really get a chance to kind of dive into, but you could take a look at the list here. And then, of course, we're working on so many other features coming up as well. A very popular one actually was just recently was PromQL support. That is coming, so you can have PromQL metrics and query them directly on ClickHouse and ClickStack. We're also working on things like ClickStack Cloud to make it easier to have it hosted for you. Observability notebooks, service maps, basically more ways to explore your data faster and dive deeper without having to put in as much effort. And of course, we're just getting started. All this roadmap is really thanks to feedback from you guys, so please keep that coming, and we'll keep building in that direction. Otherwise, to get started and learn more about everything I talked about today, you could go to clickhouse.com/o11y to learn more. And that's it for me.